Hello and welcome again to everybody. My name is Frederick Worley. I'm the Associate Dean for Academic Affairs here at Extension, and I also have the pleasure of overseeing our Career Center. And it's a great honor and privilege for me to welcome you to this UC Berkeley Extension Career Exploration Series. Our session today is titled Expert Tips for Launching Your Biotechnology Career. And we have fantastic speakers and a wonderful moderator to give you a lot of information about these topics and hopefully get you engaged and excited to work further in this field and also to make connections and get some key insights about your career possibilities. The Career Center and career services that we have at Extension really aims to provide individualized career services and training to our current and future students, but also to our alum. We can help you close your individual skill gap and gain access to relevant professional experiences and expert networks to expand your professional ecosystem. The event today is one in our monthly series that we offer to support job seekers. And you can see what other sessions are upcoming, as well as learn about all the programs for job seekers that we are offering at the links on the screen or in the chat box. Berkeley Extension is here for all. It's offering thousands of courses and dozens of programs for professionals and adult learners to provide access to highest quality education anywhere in the world online, as well as in class in Berkeley and the Bay Area. And we're very excited to be able to provide these services for you, such as this event. And it's my pleasure today to be able to introduce and hand over to our wonderful moderator, our program director of UC Berkeley Extension's SMB department, Elissa Carney. Thank you so much, Elissa. Over to you.
Thank you, Frederick. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our wonderful event today. As Frederick said, my name is Elissa Carney, and I'm the program director for the Science, Mathematics, and Biotechnology team at UC Berkeley Extension. Specifically under the biotechnology arm of our department, we are currently running programs including regulatory affairs, clinical research, conduct and management, as well as drug development. These programs are run in various formats and various times in order to make learning accessible to the adult learner. Today, we are very fortunate to have three panelists who are going to share their expert tips on launching a career in biotechnology. First up, we'll hear from Maureen Martin, a California registered nurse with over 30 years of experience, 18 of which focused on global and local pharmaceutical, biotechnology, and contract research organizations within regulatory affairs and pharmacovigilance. She is an experienced medical editor, quality compliance expert, reviewer of regulatory submission documents, and she also has experience with data field accuracy, corporate style guide standards, and scientific readability. Next, we'll hear from Bob DeGroot, Partner and Director of Business Development at Biotech Incorporated, a US-based life sciences consulting organization that brings decades of industry knowledge and expertise to their clients. BioPoint Incorporated specializes in health economics, outcome research, regulatory affairs, drug safety and pharmacovigilance, quality assurance, and pharmaceutical information technology. Boston Business Journal named BioPoint Incorporated to its exclusive 2021 Fast 50 list, which represents the 50 fastest growing private companies in Massachusetts. Finally, we'll hear from Greta McAhern, campus recruiter for BioPoint. In this role, she is responsible for hiring business development representatives and pharmaceutical recruiters for both the East and West Coast offices. Prior to that, Greta was a pharmaceutical recruiter for BioPoint. Moving forward with today's session, we'll hear from our speakers and they'll be taking your questions at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I'll pass it over to you, Maureen.
Thank you, Alyssa. And I'm really grateful to have this opportunity to work with UC Berkeley. Hello, everyone. I wanted to first start out with, why did I get involved in mentoring? Well, simply put, I think we are all born with talents, but many of us don't actually find those until later in life. Maybe that was just me, but I think many of you will discover that there are unique talents that you'll discover even later in your career. For instance, for me, recently, I discovered that I had a great aptitude for doing the QC of documents going to the FDA and regulators. And that was something I didn't even know about until the last 7 or 8 years. So mentoring gives us an opportunity to look at our skill set and be involved with experts that give us confidence to move forward. I've been mentoring for decades, initially with troubled teens in San Francisco. In fact, most of my degrees were in San Francisco area. So when I saw that time countdown with the San Francisco and the Golden Gate Bridge, it was pretty exciting. In nursing, I also have been doing a lot of mentoring and helping other people develop one another. In the subsequent time, it's in the pharmaceutical industry, I have been mentoring as well as these webinars. The most exciting thing, though, was with the Pfizer mentoring program, which I was able to launch on the Western United States. It was an amazing experience, and it was really successful, even in its first year, developing over 300 individuals. But my career path really wasn't evident to me in my 20s or 30s. However, I was a doctor's daughter, and I had pharmaceutical reps over for dinner often. So I just wasn't listening. And what got me listening was a severe allergy to latex. At the time, there wasn't even substitute. There was the point when I started working with recruiters and mentors. And I guess the biggest thing that I can say I got from that experience was the hope and inspiration and motivation to do the things that I said, no, I can't do that. I've never done that before. And I'm trying to encourage you and say, sometimes you really haven't done anything before. And in fact, sometimes you might even go for a job interview and you don't have every single skill set listed on the job description. But if you're honest about that, and if you're able to talk about transferable skills that you might have gotten in some other job, in some other industry, that's going to take you really to great places. And I want to tell you that there are people all around you right now who want to see you succeed. And in fact, they want to see you achieve great things. Many of us in our last years of our careers, which I am getting towards that at some point, although I would hope to work for another decade or so, we're wanting to help develop and provide valuable lessons that might help you move forward in your career. And in exchange, oftentimes, I'm finding that young people that I'm mentoring are also helping me with a lot of the things that I don't know, having not been in that generation that used computers from the time I was in kindergarten. So the question is, how do you find a mentor? A lot of that is asking questions, but I would beg you to ask some of those questions of yourself first. What skills, what behaviors do you want or need to develop? If you're not totally aware of some of your strengths and weaknesses, you might want to ask some of your best friends, your family members, your teachers, what do you think I might need to work on? confidence building, presentation skills, whatever it is. So start writing notes about what do you need to develop in your skill set. And then start asking questions of people that you admire. That might be, how do you stay so cool in these weekly meetings, especially with vice presidents in the room? They seem so grueling, but you always seem so confident. So that might open up a door to more conversations and the possibility to find somebody that you work well with. What a gift. So I just talked about gifts. Like any gift in life, it's what you put into it. You can't just go through your closet and find some used item and give that to somebody and really expect that there is some appreciation for your gift. You have to come in with being real, humble, and curious. I'm going to use the word curious a lot in this presentation because I think it's important to remain curious throughout your life. Hopefully you'll find with that curiosity, the trust, and somewhere along the line, the career that really fits your personality, your talents. But remember, we all need practice, a lot of practice, in fact. In fact, I was on a diving team and was going off the high dive and did quite a few belly flops, which I can say are quite painful, before I really learned how to do some good dives. So remember, it's okay to fail. It's okay to not do the best that you want. It's okay to not even get the job. And believe me, you probably are very well aware that that happens. That happens young in your career and older. But one of the things I noticed, and this is where the power of mentoring came for me, I noticed one manager who was gently fostering cooperation over competition. Yes, in business, we have to be competitive. But I find, and she found, that if you foster cooperation, you can actually succeed. And I noticed that her timelines were much better than other people, and her group of people under her were having a lot of fun. Well, I didn't want to miss out on the fun, and I didn't want to miss out on their mentor. So I went to her right away and asked her to be my mentor in pharma. It didn't happen right away, but ultimately she became my mentor and I got the position. And that was the position where I ran the mentoring group for Pfizer. And believe me, that person and that time in my life has changed my life. It's given me a lot more confidence. So seek someone you admire. Somebody that knows you is also a plus. And make these relationships with the admiration and with some awareness of your personality and some of the things that you need to work on really give you a head start and make that mentoring session a lot more productive and a lot more effective from the get-go. The best mentor should push you out of your comfort zone. And in fact, I believe that out of that comfort zone are where you find your true talents. And that's what I mean. There's a lot of talents that you will find in your career as you move along from college to even transition. And you might make a lot of changes. I did out of necessity because of different things in pharma and the allergies. The Axelrod article is more focused on the mentor, but what she says that is important for both the mentor and the mentee is we have to have open communication, realistic expectations, and create a plan. So don't go into asking for a mentor and asking to get developed by another person and then waste their time and your own for that matter by not being prepared. And that was where we were talking on the prior slides. Know what you need to work on and know how you want to kind of go at least one session at a time. Your mentor will give you more help about that, but you need to come with real good answers and some self-discovery that comes from yourself. Maybe you don't act like a pro with your first mentor or even your 10th mentor, but each one of them, you'll get some skills and you'll keep growing. I really like this How to Find a Mentor 3 steps on NPR. Of course, I love NPR. And those 3 steps, just simply put, are, once again, ask yourself, what do you want and what do you need for growing personally and professionally? We talk about career, but I think you all know at this point in your life, your personal is just as wrapped up into it. So look at that. And then who in your life do you already know that might help you advance that? Write down those names, write down what you need and want to work on. And then just so that you go into this step a little more in your comfort zone, ask those people one at a time to get together with you informally, maybe over coffee, maybe take a walk, maybe in the campus library, whatever it is, sit down, get to know each other informally. It can be 15 minutes, it can be an hour. It shouldn't be much longer than that. And at the end of that time, you don't have to ask them at that point unless you really go, wow, this is the person. But afterwards, ask yourself and write down, does this person motivate me? And does this seem like a good fit? Then, and only then, would you ask for regular meetings. And they don't have to be face-to-face, though that is one avenue. They can be over the phone. I've done a lot of people across the country, and it's been over the phone. It can be FaceTime or it can not be FaceTime. It can be Zoom or it can not be. So you've got a lot of choices. This is a little busy slide. I would say it's just resources, which we're going to provide to you at the end of the session on a handout. But one thing that's not on here is peer mentoring. Peer mentoring isn't often written about or talked about, but you are probably already doing that informally with your study groups, with your colleagues in the library, with your friends when you meet to just talk about what's going on in your education and where you want to go forward in your career. So that would be the groundwork of what I'm calling peer mentoring. And you can actually read about it a little bit more if you just put in that topic. The structure is usually small. It would be probably no more than 5 people. And it can be, again, your fellow students, it can be colleagues that you're already working with. So this small informal group gets together and talks about your research or your career search. You can talk about, I'm going for an interview, and does anybody know some good plans for the question? You always come to an interview with a question. What's a good question? And you know, lessons learned, those are great. In fact, lessons learned are great topics of discussions to do with any mentor as well. We've all had stumbles and falls, and some of us bigger than others. So do ask another person about, you know, what were some of the hardest challenges that they had to overcome. But the peer sessions allow you to not only get some time for discussions, exercise, laughter, a little fun, but allows you to help one another. And God knows we're all, or at least those of us have done a lot of interviewing. It's a little stressful, and waiting for that job offer is even more stressful sometimes. And I would say that a group of 4 or 5 people that you click with could be a game changer to get through that time. The 24 Reasons is just a resource that you might even want to use in a peer mentoring group or just use independently. It gives you 24 topics that might help you in themes for mentorship. Maybe one will really click for you and you'll go, oh, wow, that's the one that I'm going to talk to a potential mentor about. I talked about preparing for mentoring, and that's where the cheat sheet helps, as well as the preparation list below. I also have a friend that is doing a lot of mentoring in the pharmaceutical industry for several big organizations. And she gave me a really long list, but I took some jewels from it. Interview techniques, yes. Best practices. And I'd even say worst practices might be a thing to discuss. And that hopefully will be something that might be peppered through Bob and Greta that come up with some stories, because I bet they have a lot of them. Building rapport, it doesn't come instantly. We all know that. Our friendships took time. Strategic planning and strategic thinking are things that your professors have probably always helped you, prodded you, gently pushed you forward on how to do things, how to articulate better, how to get an email that actually gets people to respond. Relationship building and networking. Those are things always that are going to be very, very important in mentoring. And in fact, I would have to say in my career and just my personal experience through life in general, but definitely in career, relationship building is number one. There is really no rule for how long a mentoring session will last. The corporate ones, like at Pfizer, they were 1-year sessions. And we had a structure where you met every week for an hour or every other week. I think towards the end of the year, people were going the every other week on the whole. Didn't always go an hour. It certainly depended on timelines and you know what was on your plate at that point. Interviewing skills, that could be a small session. That could go for a month or a little bit more than a month if you really needed the support from other people. The real treasures from mentors comes from them asking you some deep questions and challenging you, finding ways of encouraging you through some of these challenges. And remember, they're giving you a gift of themselves. And they're not taking any salary for that. So that's a big gift in your life. And it comes straight from their heart. I would ask you to show your appreciation often in whatever way feels comfortable. I'm not talking about gifts, but I'm just saying if there isn't something to appreciate about what they've shared with you, then maybe you need to find another one. This slide has some information about one of the interns that I worked with recently at La Jolla Pharmaceuticals. She had a degree, actually almost 10 years before. She took a considerable pay cut and came into our summer internship program. She loved it. She found colleagues that she worked well with. And when our company downsized, they took her with them to start a new company. And she's never looked back. She is so glad she took the risks. That key thing is the takeaway. The risks and the less money, they turned out to be a great opportunity for advancing her career. And she's 3 years out from that. What's not on here is an article I found and I put into the resource that will be sent out to you after this is 12 pieces of career advice I wish someone had told me. The 4 that really stuck out for me were choose a career that you like, not the one that pays you really well. Money's great, but you have to love it. And number 2, I've said this before, but never lie or exaggerate about your skill set on your resume or an interview. Believe me, it's found. And the pharmaceutical industry is the I think, the smallest industry in the world for most of us. And most of us, even when we leave a company, end up working with that person again, over and over again. So I guess that also goes with don't burn any bridges. Don't be afraid, like I said, to apply for a job if you don't meet all the requirements. I've gotten jobs because of that. And in fact, I've gotten jobs that were not, when I actually came in and shared what my skill sets were, they said, oh my goodness, she'd be perfect for this job and we haven't even listed it yet. So please share and maybe show, demonstrate, or verbally demonstrate some of your talents. Never Stop Learning is my last one on that group from the 12 pieces. Well, most likely interviewing is real familiar to all of you, or possibly starting. You've had to probably do some of it academically. These are just my tips after many decades, and certainly interviewing many people pursuing their careers. One critical item that's not on this list and probably should be is what Alyssa started with on the resources in your alumni, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's the Career Center, whether it's the colleagues that you meet in your classes, whether it's a post-graduation event, whether it's something where people meet to do some cleanup or support in the community. Use those to find potentials for your career to develop, as well as your interviewing. By the way, in Indeed's site, it noted that it takes approximately 8 weeks between interview and offer. It's a long time. And that's where you need that peer mentoring group that keeps you motivated and positive and connected. And it's also why on this list, I think it's the requesting business cards, second to the last one, for thank you notes. It doesn't mean that you have to send a thank you card, although you can do that, but definitely a thank you email. I have heard many people say I've gotten a thank you text, and I don't hear anybody saying that that's their favorite method for getting a thank you note. But what the thank you note does, it keeps you first and foremost into the interviewers' minds. So when they see that you're interested in a job and that you're writing thank you notes and you're doing some follow-up, which is the last bullet point there, it can make a difference. I've heard people say, I never heard from the person again. So they went with somebody that actually reached out to them. This is just a few more resources and relationships and karma issues. The last bullet is a pitch to get involved in mentoring yourself someday, if you haven't already, because believe me, you get a lot of joy out of it. The rewards are endless, and I keep growing and keep enjoying, and it keeps me young. It's definitely not work. You're giving to somebody, but you're getting a lot back. I'm often told about that from mentors. I like this. I love this, actually. The idea of having a board of mentoring directors. Wow, wouldn't that just be amazing? And I think it's doable. I encourage you to work on that theme and find yourself the most incredible people who make you feel good after a discussion, even after talking about a challenge, even after maybe nudging you to maybe work on something that you need to change. That is the best guidance I can give you right now for your future. And I'm going to turn the mic over to Greta from BioPoint. I would like to also just say that all of us are available to nurture and mentor you in the future, and you'll see our information at the end. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maureen. That was awesome. I'm excited to be with you all today to discuss some tips on finding a full-time role or a consulting role in the pharma industry. So first of all, I think it's important to distinguish the difference between contract and full-time employment. As you all will begin your search, I think you guys will notice there is a difference, or there is a couple of different ways to go, and two of those being consulting work and full-time opportunities in the industry. And there are a few main differences between consulting and full-time work. So neither is really better than the other. It just depends on personal preference. Some of the main differences between the two, though, are most of the time contractors are hired in the pharmaceutical industry to help with a specific purpose or like an urgent project, and they are hourly versus salaried employees. Consulting can also be a great way to gain experience quickly and grow your network. On the other end is full-time employment. So this is where people, early in their careers, if they feel most comfortable gravitating towards amazing. Sometimes, they do go the contract route, but I would say most of the time, if you're starting early in your career, you might go the full-time route. And full-time offers benefits through their employer, and they are also paid the same no matter what. So all that being said, why do companies hire contractors or consultants versus full-time employers? Well, for one, employers have quick access to talent when they hire contractors. Their candidates are very well qualified and can immediately step in and help the organization. It's also a way for companies to see if the contractor can be a good fit for the company long term. So which is better? And I think deciding whether contract or full-time employment is better is a personal choice. It definitely can be hard to weigh the pros and cons between both of them. And if you have to ask yourself, or something you maybe should ask yourself, if contractor employment is the right role for you, I think a good question to ask yourself is, what are you looking to achieve? And although contracting can be a risk starting out, it's definitely a great way, I would say, to break into the industry and into companies and show them what you're capable of. If you're, thinking about breaking into the industry for the first time and you're in the early stages of your career, it can also be a helpful way to start and gain, full-time positions and experience and figure out a career path that fits you, and potentially, do contract down the line. So this slide covers a little bit about the value of working with a recruiter. And I would definitely encourage, whether you decide on working as a consultant or in contract work or full-time, to utilize a recruiter or a hiring agency. And I think the first thing to discuss too is it's no cost to the job seeker to work with a recruiter or an agency. The employer pays all the fees themselves. It's also important to note too that the recruiters have worked to build these relationships with the employers. And so the employers really trust these recruiters to find the right candidates. And if you're able to find the right recruiter that supports one of the companies that you're looking to get into, it only benefits you in the long run. They can also help with resume building and advocating for you when you're interviewing. And I would say the last thing that I will talk about is, working with a recruiter, right? So there are some tips that I think that are beneficial when you start working with a recruiter that you could know. And I would suggest, working with multiple recruiters, because this will provide you with more opportunities getting your resume out there at multiple companies. I would also suggest looking for recruiting companies and recruiters that specialize in types of roles that you're looking for specifically. And also, don't be afraid to hold your recruiter accountable. Ask them, have they hired with this company before? Ask them, how long is the turnaround time if you're presenting over my resume? And when should you hear back from them? All right, so that concludes my slides, and I'll turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Greta, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Bob DeGroot, and I'm co-founder and partner of BioPoint Incorporated. And this afternoon, I'd like to talk to you briefly about establishing a professional network and some ideas around interviewing for either contracting or full-time employment. Building a professional network. We found that the cornerstone of any successful professional network is typically built these days using LinkedIn. It's an established platform that's used across all industries, but most notably in the pharmaceutical and biotech industries. It's a very powerful platform that allows you to reach a number of people in very short order. To get established on LinkedIn, for those of you that may not have already done so, it's very easy, very intuitive platform. It guides you through the steps that you need to be able to create an effective web page presence on the LinkedIn platform. There are several varieties of LinkedIn, if you will, 7 different versions actually. But the 2 that we'd encourage you to focus on are first and foremost the free version. And then secondly, if you find after using the free version that you like the platform and it works for you, consider the professional career version, which is a subscription version that costs about $30 a month. The difference between the 2 is really the range of functionality and the access to others on the LinkedIn platform that you have available. Obviously, when you subscribe to LinkedIn, they'll provide you more tools and again, more functionality. And as you begin to reach out to people, start with your friends, colleagues, professors, mentors, people that you may have worked with on internships, interns or supervisors, etc. Start to build that core around you. And then as you start to get more comfortable with the platform, start crafting a couple of introductory messages describing who you are, what you seek to achieve, and how connecting with you would be of value for future networking purposes. Then start running searches. LinkedIn provides a very powerful search engine that allows you to come in contact with people in career areas that may be of most interest to you. Reach out to those people, introduce yourself, and ask them to connect for the purposes of current and future networking opportunities. And then I'd also encourage you to use the research piece of LinkedIn to find chat rooms and forums that focus on the career areas that you're most interested in, whether that's regulatory, pharmacovigilance, clinical sciences, or other areas of the biotech and pharma industries. In all cases, you're going to have to push the search forward. If you distribute your CV periodically and just sit back and wait for people to respond, the job search process may be a long one and somewhat disappointing one for you. But on this slide, I want to encourage, or I want to give you ways that you might begin to actively pursue opportunities in the pharmaceutical industry. First, stay in touch with your professors, supervisors, and those that you've come in contact with through your academic career. Connect with them on LinkedIn, email, and by phone. Stay in touch with them periodically. Keep them apprised of your job search efforts, the areas of interest that you have. You never know when someone is going to reach out to them with a job opportunity or an inquiry, and keeping top of mind with these people will always be valuable. Next, we'd encourage you to find 2 or 3 recruiters, especially those focused in the areas that you're most interested in. This may be a painstaking process. As Greta said, not all recruiters are created equal. But in time and with some diligence, you'll find that you start to connect with those few recruiters that you feel you can trust and that will have your best interests in mind. Meet with them. But in all cases, stay transparent. Let them know that you're working with other recruiters. Tell them the job opportunities that you may also be looking at through other avenues. but be truthful. And last, go to Indeed.com. Maureen mentioned this, and I think this is a very powerful platform too. It's one where many industries aggregate the job opportunities that they have. And it gives you quick access to a variety of different job options that you might want to consider. Some of these job descriptions that are on Indeed list the employer or even the department that the job is located in. Research that department using LinkedIn. Reach out to the people in that department to see if you might be able to arrange an informational interview to learn more about the role or just more about the department in general. But again, in all cases, be proactive. Tips for interviews. So now you've finally gotten to the point where someone wants to talk to you about a job opportunity that you're interested in. This is a great win, and take it very, very seriously. When you're interviewing, the interview process is really a two-way process. That is, you're interviewing the company that's interested in you as much as they're interviewing you to see if you might be of interest to them as a job candidate and a future employee. So remember, whether you're meeting with someone over Zoom or in person, don't disclose too much personal information right away. That is, likes, dislikes, upcoming vacations, things of that nature. Keep your answers focused on the questions that are being asked. Provide details around those questions, but try not to offer any more information than that. You never know what's going to disqualify you. Watch your interviewer. Do they seem to pay attention? Do they seem genuinely interested in the answers that you're offering? Or are they actually kind of gazing off, not interested and not engaged in helping you understand what the role would entail and what the expectations they would have of you would be should you become an employee at that company? Does your interviewer create a conversational setting, or is it more one where they're grilling you with consecutive questions? Again, gives you a lot of insight into the personality of the organization and the specific group, and can tell you a lot about whether or not it would be a good match for opportunities in that company. Also, these days, keep in mind, vaccine policies are alive and well. And as more and more companies return to the office, it's important for you to understand the expectations that any employer has over going back to work on site and the vaccination requirements that they may have for that on-site presence. And last, we see from time to time interviewers really grill candidates about salary expectations, oftentimes too soon in the process as far as we're concerned. So if you find that happening to you, politely deflect, explain that you're trying to learn more about the organization and the specific opportunity, and defer the salary question to a later date. If you were working through a recruiter on that particular opportunity, then defer the hiring manager or refer the hiring manager to that recruiter for specific salary discussions. In all cases, prepare for your interview. Do the research that's necessary to make sure that you're as prepared as you can be with an understanding of who you're going to be speaking to and questions for them that, number one, show you've done your homework about them, their company, and the general requirements that they have for that role. Backdoor references, these are very powerful, and we use these often in our industry. So knowing that someone may have worked for a person that's doing the interviewing, find that person. If you can, if you happen to know them, ask questions about what the interviewer style might be. Also, use Glassdoor.com. This is a great application where employees of specific companies offer up comments and commentary on the life and times of that specific employer. Some things you have to take with a grain of salt for sure, but there can be pearls of wisdom there that help you understand whether or not that company might be a good fit for you. And last, use LinkedIn to research the company, how many people work at the company, and specifically the person that's interviewing you and their career. How have they gotten to where they are in their career? Look at the different steps that they've taken and try and understand how that may fit well into your career path. And most importantly, come up with 2 or 3 questions or more about the company and that particular hiring manager. Show that you've done your research. In closing, I want to encourage all of you to stay positive in your job search. Remain open-minded and upbeat. Finding a job is not easy. But now, as you move on from graduate school or maybe throughout your career, it becomes your job to find your next job. Dedicate the time that is really needed to find the job that you want. Again, people aren't necessarily going to come looking for you. You need to go looking for them. So spend time every day researching companies, researching opportunities, refining your CV, and distributing it. And most importantly, dress for success. We're coming out of a period where we've all become a little bit more relaxed in our wardrobe and how we appear amongst our professional peers and colleagues. It's important to note that whether you're interviewing by Zoom or in person or both, you should dress professionally, and preparing for that, add a few items to your wardrobe. Spiff it up a little bit. Show people you care. It'll reward you time and time again.
Well, I think the 3 of us can open up the questions, and the one was a really good question that, Bob, I think you might have more specifics. The one about the whether or not to include the recruiters in a company that was not actually their contact. If you have a company you want to get into, but the recruiters, I already know, I'm not sure if the company is their client. Should I seek their advice still? And will they be able to help me, or am I on my own?
I would encourage that person to reach out to that company or that recruiter in this case, and find out, ask them, do you represent this company? I'm interested in working there. If not, that's fine. I'll find someone else that is affiliated with them. And I would also encourage the person that asked this question to reach out, use LinkedIn to find out who's in the human resources group at the particular company of interest. Reach out directly to that HR person, and also use LinkedIn to maybe reach out to the functional area where the job is based. See if there might be some director level, senior director level people that would respond on LinkedIn, and see if you can begin some sort of dialogue directly and have them refer you internally to HR as a potential candidate for a role they have in mind.
Okay, this question, I think all of us have experienced. Everyone needs experienced professionals. I've been trying with all the tips, and this has been going on for a year, but alas, no one has called for an interview. Everyone wants experience. How do you deal with this? And certainly all of us have been there. I think I'm seeing all these heads nod here from the people involved with Berkeley as well as us. Sometimes it means finding somebody you know that remotely is connected to the company, or even showing up and asking at the front desk if there is anybody that you can speak to from HR to say, I'm really interested in this company. And these are the things that I have learned from just reading about your company that have gotten me very excited. I know I might have to start with a beginning position, but is there anybody I can talk to where I might be able to do an internship? But this is also where this question is also where the recruiters are going to be your godsend in getting in. I have I started out as an RN. I was not even remotely connected with research. And it was recruiters that talked about the need for something in a pharmaceutical industry. And as a result, I went in. It wasn't a really long assignment, but because the company was kind of on the brink. But I think that's where you're going to use all your resources. A great recruiter friend, I put friend because they turn out to be my friends ultimately, but of course they aren't initially. And then just your persistence. And like Bob says, you have to stay up, and that's where that peer mentoring. I know your career center where Alyssa was talking about, there's a lot of support there. So an internship, we're coming into summer, maybe there are some options there. Bob, Greta, anything else you want to add to that question?
I can add to that question. I think it's also important to understand that there's certain recruiting agencies that specialize in different areas, and also some agencies might work with entry-level candidates. Some agencies might just not have a ton of entry-level roles. And I think a good recruiter will tell you that up front too. They'll let you know and and give you an expected timeline of when you should hear back from them and the type of roles they get. And I do think that also a good recruiter will, with your permission, send your resume out. And if they have potential client that could be of interest with your background, they might send out your resume and see if there's a need for your resume and your skills at their company. I think another thing that's important that I think potentially people forget to do is connect with recruiters on LinkedIn and send them a personal message with their resumes. If you see a job that looks good on LinkedIn and you're qualified for it, send them a note. Or even if maybe you're not fully qualified, send them a note about how you're open to learning and this is your experience so far and that you're adaptable. I think that that's important. Sometimes on LinkedIn, if you find the job, it does have the recruiter that posted the job as well. So that can be pretty helpful. The last thing that I'll say too is editing your LinkedIn in a way that makes you appealing to recruiters and agents to find you easily. Make sure you have key terms highlighted. You're putting relevant information on your LinkedIn that is relevant to the job description and jobs that you're seeking. So take a look at some of the jobs that you're looking at and applying for, and highlight some key terms that you're seeing in that trend. And if you have that specific qualification or skill, put that on LinkedIn, because recruiters are searching those key terms, and then potentially your resume will show up quicker in a search for a recruiter to reach out to you.
Great answer. Bob, did you want to add anything?
No, I think Greta nailed it. Thank you.
Yeah, she did nail it. And the same for that same person asking the question. I know that feeling of taking a year. I've been there, done that. One thing I forgot to say, and maybe wasn't fully included in everything that Greta said, but she said some great things. I think you need to tell everyone that you know in your circle of people, contacts, friends, relatives, because you would be surprised. There is probably somebody in that group that might have a connection in the companies that you're interested in. So tell everyone that you are looking and you are okay with going in with a starter position. So that's just one suggestion. And the other one is just contact one of us, because we'd love to help you and mentor you for a while with this process, because I know it is super, super hard. I know it's about rejection. I know that. Okay, I'm going to go on to another question. What is the best way to break into the industry as a registered nurse? Wow, I guess that one's for me. And I'd be happy to help you with that and even mentor you with that. And I have lots of tools for that. Most of us as RNs, particularly if we've worked in any outpatient setting, but it's also in inpatient. You just don't know about it at first. There is research usually happening in your hospital, in your clinic, even in your dental office for that matter. So it's all around you. You just haven't really seen it and don't know what to look for. So again, with that same thing, let everybody know around you in the healthcare outpatient or inpatient environment, know that you are very interested in learning about research. And then, of course, you're in the right place because you're also learning about it through UC Berkeley. And so use all of those resources. Contact me if you like. I'd be happy to work with you. I have a lot of friends that have been involved in quite a few pharma positions, and they are all RNs. What can I say? RNs stick together, and we do a great thing, and we want to help one another. Okay, anybody else want to add to that?
Maureen, I think you did a great job there. I'd love to touch on, before we sign off, one question that really stuck with me, and that is, I've been a work from home parent and I'm returning to the workforce now. Do you have any tips for how I might get back involved? And I think there's a lot of people out there that are facing that dilemma. Try not to let it be too daunting. I'm going to assume that the person that asked this question has been in industry previously or held some sort of professional role prior to being a stay-at-home parent. So don't be afraid to lean on that existing network, that professional network that you built up until the time that you became a work from home parent. There's a lot of things happening in industry right now, especially if you're from a pharma background. Pharma is probably not looking as hard as they need to be for all the jobs that they have filled. So you kind of have to take the fight to them, if you will. And by that, I mean, again, using LinkedIn. That's a very powerful platform. And I can't speak strongly enough about the outreach that allows you to have to people in industry. Make sure you're connected to your friends and previous colleagues and leverage those relationships to find out, even if you can just get an informational interview. You may have to consider taking half a step back in your career, doing something that maybe you've already done just to reprove yourself so that you can take that step forward and hopefully a bigger leap as a result. Greta, would you offer anything along those lines?
Yeah, that's a difficult situation to be in. But I mean, I think if you don't already, it's kind of a small tidbit, but something that came to mind is, if there's any type of, in general, gap in your resume, or, you've taken years off to be a stay-at-home parent for any reason whatsoever, a lot of the time when you talk to recruiters and even if you do have an interview or you're applying for new roles, it helps because, sorry, I'll take a step back. It helps to immediately address that gap. So even I love it when I'm a recruiter. I look at resumes all day. I love it when there's a little bit of a gap in between someone's resume and they've highlighted was laid off due to, or was took 2 years to be a stay-at-home parent and then went back to work. Every resume tells a story. So I think putting that, if there is a gap in your resume, explaining that you were a stay-at-home parent, it adds a personal touch. I don't think it's a negative at all. For whatever reason you took time off, mention it in the resume, maybe bold it for whatever reason. Because I think if there is a gap in your resume and it's not explained, some recruiters might look past that and be like, not sure if this person is, keeping a steady job. But if you have an explanation and you have a story to tell between each job, and it's your story as a candidate, I think it's important to share that too. That's just my tidbit.
And I'll just jump in and say that the aspect in staying at home parent for COVID years is an exception. It's an exception that has affected this whole country and certainly this whole planet. So there is not anybody out there that doesn't understand that the aspect of parenting for children during this time of COVID has been a challenge from the get-go. And many people think it might be a challenge for those children as well as those families for, quite a bit of time to come. So I admire you for having done that. And I don't think you're going to get too much pushback from that, because that is truly an exceptional thing. I'm going to go to one more question, they seem to jump at some point, so I'm hoping I'm not missing anything. Please pinpoint a few resources where we can look for either virtual or in-person networking events so that we can be more cognizant of the entry-level positions within pharma. I don't know, Alyssa, if those are available through your organization, but I know there is a very strong, in California and throughout the United States, regulatory affairs group. I would say try everything. Look at the groups that are getting together and talking about perhaps a specific research that you're interested in. And in fact, I got, as well as a friend, got very involved in Diabetic Educator One. So for RNs, that was a really good fit. And the research going on with that is extensive. There's always diabetic research, but Alyssa, jump in.
Sure, we do offer some resources for our students. Oftentimes companies reach out to us to get in touch with our students, and we do have some of the best instructors who are very involved with the student success and love networking with our students. So they're amazing resources as well.
Great. Great.
And for the previous question, I just wanted to jump in that recently LinkedIn updated to include a profile feature where you can add your gap in employment, whether it's like a stay-at-home parent or whatnot. So I think the trend is to really know what that gap was all about and to honor it, because it was important time spent, and employers do want to see where that time was devoted to.
The next question is about fielding questions on job interviews where they want to see published applicants. And if you're not published, how do you deal with that? I know I've seen that, and I've certainly worked around people who have extensive pages of their resume. In this case, they call them CVs of all the publications. It hadn't ever affected me negatively. So I need somebody else to field that question.
I guess I would lean on colleagues for ideas on how best to approach there. Sometimes informational interviews can be very valuable in opening an employer's eyes to somebody's capabilities. Also, if you have colleagues in your professional network that may work with a group that is seeking those kind of credentials, is there any way that you can get a referral into that group just for conversational purposes? Maybe you can't apply for the same role as someone that's published, but maybe there's a sidebar role where with experience, you can now get published, and now you can qualify for that original role that you were looking at. In pharma, when someone is, when an employer is looking for a candidate that is published, they typically are fairly strict about that for whatever reason. So we have to get a little bit creative in provided all other things are equal in getting that candidate in front of that employer, provided everything else lines up. So I would say tenacity is probably one of the stronger attributes you have to have in a situation like that. And again, leaning on your professional network to see if there's any way that you can get referred into an opportunity, regardless of your level of publications.
Anyone else? Just one tidbit on that answer too is I'm not published, but I'm fantastic at QCing documents. And I must say that most scientists have a real hard time having sentences that don't last for a paragraph or two, one sentence. And they really need help with somebody that knows how to write, knows how to edit a document. So maybe put that out. Any tips if you have a high schooler for succeeding in the biotech industry? Absolutely. There certainly need to be academic, and they certainly need to get out there and learn how to do volunteer positions, whether it's the hospital or a medical center. But we hired at the last pharmaceutical company that I worked for, several pharmaceutical companies that I've worked for have used high school students for summer interns. So just get them out there asking questions. Do you have an option for summer interns? There is so much work in a company doing pharmaceutical research. It's not the most interesting, but you certainly hear interesting things all around you. So maybe you're filing, maybe you're sticking labels on folders, maybe you're going to the post office. You might do a lot more interesting things than that, and you get to go to meetings and you get to ask a lot of questions. So I would say call up anybody that you might know in the industry and see if they're doing a summer internship program. Next question, registered pharmacists working in retail, currently working on my regulatory affairs. I would assume you're saying regulatory affairs certificate at Berkeley. How do I switch? Well, hopefully Berkeley will help you with that. But if that's not answering your question, I would say get involved in the regulatory affairs group in where you are. I've got the acronym for it. RAPS, yeah, RAPS, R-A-P-S. But I'd also do the same things we've talked about for all the other questions and slides, and that is let everyone you know that you're interested in getting into this industry in whatever way you possibly can. I worked initially as a drug safety nurse, and most of my colleagues were pharmacists. So you might want to also look in LinkedIn on what's available for drug safety. That's in the regulatory affairs realm, and it's a great jumping start. Would you add anything, Bob?
Yeah, just a small thing. Thank you, Maureen. Drug Information Association, DIA,
Yes.
is a great industry trade group, has a lot of information out there about how to transition into particular roles or the requirements that entry-level roles may have. It's also a great way to meet people in industry and begin to build mentorship type options that Maureen has spoken about, and just general networking scenarios, right? So dia.org, dia.com, I'm not sure exactly the web address, but Drug Information Association typed out will get you right to their website, and you can start to do some really cool research.
Great suggestion. And I bet actually as a pharmacist, you know somebody that's already in the
Sure.
the research realm. So you probably could reach out to somebody that you know. And you're welcome. You're welcome. You guys, we loved this. Do contact us. I think we can probably say our emails rather quickly for those of you that wanted some of those emails. So mine's mkmartin2015@gmail.com. Bob?
Bob.degroot@BioPoint don't forget the inc.com.
And mine is up there. It's a little bit longer than Maureen and Bob's, but it's Greta at BioPointing.
And there's one question that just came in. A biomedical engineering graduate with no experience, completed my school 3 years ago, and since then, I could not find any work in my field. What should I do to get a job? Should I continue looking for a job, or do I go back to school for certificates to help me finding a job? The biomedical engineering, I'm weak on here. Help me, guys. Is that more into the bench science, and there are entry levels? Bob, can you help me?
I'll certainly try. Thank you. You know, we see a lot of biomedical engineering requirements in the medical device space, product development, quality assurance, things of that nature. We don't do a lot of work in that area, but from our contacts, we're seeing quite a bit of demand for all levels of experience in the biomedical engineering area. So if that person would like to reach out to us with a specific question, you know, I'd be happy to address more case by case there. To be honest, I'm a little surprised you've had difficulty. Maybe your focus needs to be broadened in terms of the companies that you're calling on. But I would say in all cases, stay strong. The demand is definitely out there.
And perhaps Bob might even have a little more time to help you or mentor you a little bit on there.
Sure.
Not wanting to put you on the spot there. Alyssa, did you see any more questions that we needed to answer?
No, Maureen, I think we successfully answered our queue, and we are at time. So
Well, this was terrific. It seems like there's kind of a jumping point to get a deep dive into LinkedIn or some other things, and we really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening in.
And thanks to our speakers, Maureen, Greta, and Bob. Thank you so much for your time, insight, and expertise, and offering up your availability to even speak to some of our current, future, and former students.
Our pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'd also like to thank our audience. I hope you are inspired and armed with valuable insights to continue to further your career in biotechnology. Please reach out if you'd like to know more about our programs at UC Berkeley Extension by emailing biotech_online@berkeley.edu. Amy Giotina also added our webpage and our email to the chat. So in conclusion, we wish you the very best of success in your future career endeavors, and thank you for your time today.